Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail for you on this ferociously hot Saturday here in Boston. The weather forecast that I was looking at, I was watching cable and network forecasts. I shouldn't ever do that. Those are largely lies. They're largely done for clicks. But I've also been looking at all the data. I mean, on your cell phone or your iPad, you can download free apps that will give you access to a huge amount of data, including on-the-ground reporting along the backward path of the wind paths for the storm systems that you might be predicted to encounter. I've been watching all of that, I think along with everybody else in New England, to see when this heat wave would end. The predictions and the forecasts were all that it would end tonight, Saturday night, that a cold front was coming through that would bring with it waves and waves of rain, sometimes severe downpours with thunder and lightning, and that on the back end of that cold front would be a dramatic drop in both temperature and dew point, that the humidity would be a lot lower. And when I was looking at that information, I was watching those forecasts, I was thinking, okay, well, as I've mentioned on this channel before, I am of 100% Irish descent. So I naturally looked at all of that stuff and thought, okay, what's the worst possible case scenario here? And I came up with two. The very worst case scenario would be that all of that information is wrong, and that the cold front doesn't actually come. That the cold front doesn't extend this far south, this far east, that relief that has been universally 100% predicted by every piece of data and every forecaster simply doesn't arrive. That's worst case scenario number one. Worst case scenario number two is that some version of that relief does arrive, but it doesn't bring a single drop of rain, which New England and Massachusetts desperately needs. And every time there's rain in the forecast, it fails to materialize. And despite what some U.S. governors have told their constituents, prayer is not going to work. It would be nice if weather systems would bring moisture back to this state. It's looking to me right now, in the late morning on a Saturday, as though both of those worst case scenarios are going to come true, as if the front is not going to come to this part of the country. So relief is not actually going to arrive. It's in the mid 90s Fahrenheit with high humidity right now. It's impossible to walk the dog outside for any length of time. Impossible really to live for any length of time with her. Frida is vulnerable to the heat. So if she's laying there on the couch or on the floor in this room is air conditioned, but if she's laying on the couch or on the floor in some other part of Hyde Cottage, and even when she's not doing anything and hasn't been doing anything for an hour, she's still panting, then she's too hot and can't be there anymore. It's looking to me like that relief will not arrive. I think there's a good chance of that, and I'm 100% certain, not a chance, 100% certainty that no rain will come anywhere near Boston as a result of this change, if a change happens. So those two worst case scenarios are pretty bad. And so I was glad to hear that the consensus, known elsewhere on YouTube as the general consensus, little pet peeve there, consensus means general agreement. When you say general consensus, you're saying general agreement, and you sound like a moron. But the consensus seems to be that even with the hum of the floor fan, I've got a floor fan circulating air there, and the hum of the AC unit, I am still audible. Plenty audible. The consensus seems to be from your emails and comments that the hums in the background are audible, but that they're low enough and non-intrusive enough so that they don't matter. And that's good, because if worst case scenario number one turns out to be true and this weather simply doesn't change, then this is going to need to be true for a while. As every day goes on, where the humidity doesn't allow for any heat dissipation, and where the heat doesn't really lessen. It was 80 degrees at 4 in the morning last night. If that continues to go on, then large parts of this house are going to become pretty much uninhabitable. You'll be able to walk through them. You'll be able to eat in them, maybe for a few minutes, but Frida's covered in fur. So I'm glad that the background noise level is not prohibitive. That's great. But we do have some mail. on this blastingly hot Saturday. So some mail did come. A periodical. I got The Nation. Still done on this kind of disposable paper stock that I really like. Nobody's going to keep The Nation, right? You're not going to keep anything. People always dream they will. But the cost of the semi-laminated major magazine paper drives production costs through the roof. I imagine that's not the case with The Nation. And this has book reviews in the back of a couple of books that I haven't read. But there's a long piece in the middle by Wen Stevenson called Taking the Left Fork to Walden. 3 walks with Thoreau. So there's an old black and white photo of Walden Pond. And I can't help but notice, the piece was really good, and I can't help but notice that Thoreau and Emerson keep cropping up in unconnected vectors all over my reading world. They keep cropping up, making me wonder if maybe a massive reread of all of their stuff isn't maybe in the offing. Those kinds of cropping ups, I usually pay attention to them. I usually do. I know they're just random chance, but I usually pay attention to them. And that piece was like the 10th Emerson or especially Thoreau related thing that I have clipped out, folded up, and put in the annotated Thoreau that I got at the Brattle just the other day, just a couple of weeks ago. I keep noticing myself doing that. I'm glad I have that big annotated volume because it's now filling up with clippings. But we also have mail. We have 2 packages here, one flat and a box. And I suspect that the box is one of you misbehaving in an enormous fashion. But we shall see. Okay. Okay, this is a paperback reprint of a hardcover original. So this is new in paperback from the other press. This comes out in late August. This is I think we might have seen this in the advance and in the hardcover. This is a paperback reprint of Cristina De Stefano's biography of Oriana Fallaci. And there is the cover. You want to make sure she had some sort of artistic expression, but you want to make sure to include the thing that made her life a living hell, that made her stink like an attar pit, and that gave her lung cancer. You want to make sure to include that so that you know from the visual iconography that she was cool. There is no coercion possible for other press that would make them include a picture of Oriana Fallaci with tubes up her nose on her deathbed in the hospital on the cover of a book about her. There's no coercion that could make their art department do that, and there's no way that the publishers would sign off on doing that. But a photo that features prominently the thing that put her there, sure, we'll do that with her and Beckett and Camus and everybody else. Anyway, this has lots and lots of positive reviews on the pub sheet because this got a lot of press when it came out. Now it's out in paperback for $18 at the end of August. One of the most infamous journalists and authors of the 20th century, Oriana Fallaci covered Hollywood politics and feminism. She interviewed the top international political figures of her generation, including Khomeini, Gaddafi, Gandhi, and Kissinger, while writing best-selling novels, reporting from the front lines of several wars, and balancing love affairs and heartbreak. And dying in agony. Do we have anything about her death? Her death in 2020, since her death in 2006, not much has been written about her life and her life's work in English. And this is the first book to correct that. And it's now out in paperback. So any of you who were interested in it before, and maybe put off by the hardcover, you now have the let's see how we can keep this going here. You now have the paperback out there as another option. How's this going to work? Yes? Yes? Okay, great. And then we have the box. Just a little thing, but it's covered in tape. just covered in tape. I always wonder, this is usually the result of someone who just doesn't have all that much experience with mailing things. But I often see, when I see a package like this, I wonder, well, did you intend it to be opened? You seem to have sealed it for the ages, like the Egyptians did. But it is opening. So let's see what we have here. Okay, the inner box has wet stains on it, so that's not good. That's ominous right there. But maybe it was just sitting on a platform somewhere. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Can you make out in the background there? Do we have in the background there? Yes. If you look really hard, if you zoom in right on this bookcase right here, that one right there, you'll see bobbleheads of Mr. Spock and Superman. I'm not much for bobbleheads, but they make an adorable gift, and some of you have sent me. And at the time that I got Superman and Mr. Spock, I commented that as far as pop science fiction heroes of mine, figures that I love from pop science fiction, that as far as they go, there's a holy trinity, and by random chance, two of you happen to get me two members of that trinity, and that there's one member who's left. And only, I said that in one video, and one of you, out of all the people who commented on it, one of you immediately knew who that third person was. And this, I have a new bobblehead now, and you would think this would be the third person. It's not. It's not. But it's awful adorable. Anyway, this is a bobblehead of Crypto the Superdog. How wonderful. We'll have to tell Frida that there's only one Superdog as far as I'm concerned, and it's her. We'll have to tell her that. But that is that is wonderful. Thank you so much. But this came from the UK. Yes, this came from the UK. £21 to get it here. And that is crazy. I so much appreciate it, but that is just crazy. Mailing things to me is just such a dicey proposition. I know we mail things back and forth to each other all the time, but £21 just to put it in the mail? If you can spare it, you're the best judge, but I'm very happy to have this. And since I'm going to be filming in this room, if worst case scenario number one is right, and I'm filming in this room until further notice, then you're going to be seeing this in the background, because I'll put it on a shelf with those other two bobbleheads. Fantastic. So that's the mail. A paperback reprint, The Nation, and Crypto the Superdog. typically mixed bag here on this channel. I'm going to wrap this up for now. Even in air conditioning, any kind of exertion, sitting up, wearing clothes, speaking, starts to warm up the room, and this is dangerous level heat. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna table everything else. I was going to do a tag today. I was going to do a library tour of Doom. Going to do a Star Trek book, but I think I'm going to table all that and wait to see if worst case scenario number one is actually wrong. If I'm wrong about that, then tomorrow it will not be absolutely flatteningly, crushingly hot and humid. Tomorrow will not be a case where I need to change the general patterns of life for me and Frida. If that is true, if I'm wrong about worst case scenario number one, worst case scenario number one is that this front never does actually materialize, and that the heat just stays. If I'm wrong about that, then I can make all of those videos tomorrow. I can bombard you with videos on a Sunday. And I know I'm not wrong about worst case scenario number two. There isn't going to be any moisture at all, much less widespread rainfall, which would be an absolute godsend at this point in Massachusetts climate. So I think I'll hold off on those. You'll just get two videos today, and not very interesting ones, but that never stops you before. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.